Hello beautiful people, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, you're welcome. My name is Sharon. So today we're going to talk about brushes and beauty blenders. We are going to talk about the tools you need for your makeup. I did a video before and you wanted an updated version, so here it is. So we're going to talk about brushes today, and before you do that, kindly subscribe, share your thoughts on the comment section down below. I'll be reading all of them kama kawaida, and if you like the video, give it a big thumbs up. With no further ado, let us go straight into the video. Okay, so we're going to start off with what you need for your eye makeup, starting off with eyebrows. So the brush I'm holding here is called a spoolie, and it is used to brush through your eyebrows, so it gives it a better shape before you start lining. And if you don't have a spoolie, you can use an old mascara brush. Just clean it out and use it as a spoolie. And remember, this video is we are focusing more on the tools you need, not the technique per se. I'm going to teach you how to use the tools, but in regards to product, kindly check the description box. And after you're done lining, you can go through your eyebrows with a spoolie again before you start filling in. So you can do this using for me, normally I use a Becca primer or a clear glue, so your eyebrows appear more fuller. When you fill in, it looks more natural. So you just fill in the areas where you have space, and that is basically the work of a spoolie. So next, to clean up your eyebrows, you need a small angled brush. Make sure that brush is angled. Don't use a fluffy brush for this. And if your brush is not that, the angle is not as precise as it should be, just use a small amount of clear glue and then press it in, and you're going to get a very sharp edge around the edge of your brush. So it's easier for you to clean up the eyebrows, you get a better shape, and it's easier to work around when the brush is very, very angled. So those are the two tools you need for your eyebrows. First, the spoolie, and this angled brush to clean up the eyebrows. And make sure you drag your concealer down as you clean your eyebrows, so it's easier for you to blend when you're done cleaning your eyebrows. So to blend in your concealer before you start applying eyeshadow, make sure you use a round fluffy brush. Round fluffy brush. And if you don't have this brush, you can just use your finger and tap it in until that concealer or eye primer blends in completely. So moving on to eyeshadow. For the transition shades, make sure you use a very small fluffy brush. Small, round and fluffy. Small, round and fluffy brush. So for the technique I am going for today, I'm going to start off with a lipstick, blend it in using that small fluffy brush. It should be round, make sure it's round, and a very, very soft texture to it, so it's easier for you to blend. So I'm going to start off with a lipstick. I normally do this when I want the pigment to be on top, and then after, just apply eyeshadow on top of that lipstick I started off with. And just look at that pigment. Just look at that pigment. It makes such a difference when it comes to pigment. You don't have to do this technique, but that is what I did. And you guys wanted to see how I achieved my eye look. So for blending in the transition shade, go for a smaller. You started off with a small, round, fluffy brush. Go for a smaller, fluffy brush to blend in. And for blending in, use circular motions and very little force. And then next, around the crease region, because we are not going to do a cut crease today, make sure that area is blended, because you used concealer before. Make sure it has a very smooth blend before you start applying eyeshadow. So around the crease region, use the same brush you use to clean your eyebrows. And you know why? This brush already has some concealer in it. It has some product in it, so it holds in the product more. So it's easier for you to apply that eyeshadow around the crease region. It maintains the pigment and it holds in the product. Around the crease region, tap the eyeshadow in. Do not drag that brush around. And next for the eyeshadow, I'm just going to apply a little bit of glitter in the middle, a very tiny bit. So you guys wanted to see how I applied the white liner on top of the black liner. As you can see, my eyes are twitching, they twitch a lot. So doing this is not very easy. So I just normally apply just on top. I don't want it to be perfect the first time because I'm going to correct that with a black liner after. So don't worry if it is not perfect the first time, you can correct it. And then I'm going to apply the white liner on top of the crease region because I wanted a pattern on my eyeshadow today. This is very unnecessary, you don't have to do all this. So next, to apply eyelashes, you can either use a tweezer or this, but I prefer this eyelash holder more than a tweezer because it has a bigger surface, so it holds in more on the lashes. You have a firm grip, unlike tweezers. So just press it in and make sure you press in around the edges as well. So moving on to the face, I'm going to start off by moisturizing. You don't need a tool to blend in your moisturizer. You can just use your hand or your fingers to blend that in. And then after, I am going to apply primer after the concealer has set, and then blend it in again using my fingers. You don't need a tool for this. Using my fingers. And then for primer, make sure you tap it in. After you have blended, just tap, 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 tap until your skin absorbs all that product. And then make sure it sets fast before you move on to foundation. So moving on to foundation, you can either use a foundation brush or a beauty blender to apply foundation. So foundation brush normally has a very soft texture and an angle on top of it. You can see this other brush is very round. This one has an angle to it. You can use a more round brush. It has to be a little bit firm, not too fluffy. If you're going for a round brush, make sure it is a bit firmer than the other brushes which are fluffy. So for me, I would prefer the angled brush because it is easier to penetrate around the under eye. As you can see, you can penetrate around the under eye very, very easily. And start off by blending just below the under eye, going down, because you don't want to use a lot of product around the chin region. So to avoid using lots of product around that area, blend in starting from the under eye, going down. So the product is concentrated more around the under eye and cheekbones, not the chin. So the other side of the face, I'm going to use a beauty blender. So make sure you use a damp beauty blender and squeeze out the excess water first before you apply foundation. So the difference between applying foundation using the brush and beauty blender is the beauty blender it absorbs a lot of product. Okay, so you may use more product when blending in with a beauty blender as compared to blending in using a brush. Sorry for my voice. So, and then for beauty blender, it has a more fine finish compared to the brush. So if you have dry skin, because I know dry skin has texture to it, or acne prone, you may look more on the beauty blender side. So when it comes to blending in concealer, on the other hand, make sure you use a small, it is angled because you need to penetrate around the under eye. As you can see, the concealer is just below the under eye, so you need to penetrate that region and blend it in. You can see this brush is smaller, has a very soft texture and a bit angled. And for technique, tap, tap, tap until it all blends in. And the beauty of using this small brush is the product remains just around the under eye. You don't need to drag the concealer to your cheekbones. It should remain around this angle because it is to lift the face up a little. So don't drag that concealer all the way down. And on the other side of my eyes, I'm going to use a beauty blender to blend in the concealer. The same beauty blender I used to blend in foundation. So next, to set in the concealer using a setting powder, for a brush, use a round, very, very soft texture and not too fluffy brush, because you want the product to sit in, not to blend around. You want that product to sit in around that region. So for when using a beauty blender, on the other hand, Make sure you blow off the excess powder on the beauty blender, and then set in, press in the product so it sets around that region. And set in the areas where you highlighted using a concealer. So next, because I am doing a powder contour, for this use a round fluffy brush. Make sure that brush is very, very fluffy, because this region requires a lot of blending. When it comes to blending using powder, any tool you use when it comes to blending using powder, make sure it is very fluffy so it blends in very, very easily. Don't use something that is firm to blend in powder products. And when it comes to contouring the nose region, make sure you use a smaller more angled brush. And when it comes to tapping in the product, don't drag on the product, just tap it in, because this area around the nose is very sensitive. If you use too much product, it's going to show, and you don't want very harsh lines around that region. So for the technique, start just below the eyebrows going down, and apply that depending on how small you want your nose to appear. So if you have a very, very small nose, please don't contour your nose, because you're going to make your nose disappear and you don't want that. So when it comes to blending that in, I normally use a clean brush. So to avoid having that harsh line around my nose, use a clean brush and just blend it in, so you avoid using more product around that region, because it's going to look ridiculous if you use a lot of product around this region. So when it comes to the under eye, make sure you use a very small brush. As you can see, this is a very tiny brush, because you don't want to apply so much product you look ridiculous around the under eye. So using the same color you used on your first transitioning shade, just use that brush to apply just below your under eye. So next I am just going to set my whole makeup up. I'm using the Milani Make It Last setting spray. Okay, so next to highlight, especially around the bridge of your nose and around your lip, around your upper lip, sorry, use a very small brush, especially for the bridge of your nose. You don't want to use a big brush for that, because it's going to mess up your contour size, if that makes sense. And then I'm just going to apply a little bit of a highlighter around just below the eyebrows, around the corner, to make it, you know, pop a little. And then when it comes to highlighting your cheekbones, I don't think we have a rule on which brush to use. Just make sure it is not a big brush, and make sure the brush is fluffy, because this area requires blending as well. For lipstick, you don't require any tools. So that is it for me today, really. Let me know what you think about it. I love this whole look. Let me know what you think about this whole tutorial. I hope you have learned something from this tutorial. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me today. I'll be seeing you next time. Bye.